So speaking of, so in this next episode, what happens is Spike, he's this little dragon, and he starts to go through kind of like a phase, kind of like growing up, and Twilight sees this and she's like, "Whoa, what's going on?" He starts to kind of hoard stuff. So he sleeps in a basket, okay, and he starts to kind of hoard things in his basket. So he gets like a bunch of like books from the library because they live in a library, and he gets a bunch of little miscellaneous items, little tiny things here and there, here and there, here and there, and he just starts to accumulate like a bunch of things, just like material things, just random things. And what's weird is like as he does this, he starts to grow. He starts to get bigger, and the more stuff he collects, the bigger he gets. The idea is like dragons are greedy, and they need to take in a bunch of stuff, and they're gonna have like this big cave, because like with the dragon earlier, you have this big cave, and in the cave is just this huge dragon, asleep on like a bunch of gold and silver and gems and stuff like that. And so that's like the stereotype for the dragons. And so the same thing happens here, right? He starts to collect a lot of stuff, and he sort of starts to grow up, or whatever you want to call it. But then he starts to go around town. So he goes to town, and they just start taking things like from people, like just balls. He starts to take boxes, starts to take barrels, and just starts collecting it all. Just takes it. Takes so much stuff from everyone that he grows and grows and grows until he gets essentially like, you see that picture, like he's just this huge dragon. And once he does that, so Spike's got like a huge crush on Rarity, right? So he just like steals Rarity, just like snags Rarity, and just like takes her, just takes her. And he starts to take more and more and be greedier, and just collect all this junk, all this crap. That kind of makes him into this like metaphorical dragon, right? This idea that he is, evil and takes and destroys the land, and pretty much, he steals people. I mean, that's pretty messed up. And as it goes on, like Twilight can't really do anything, so he kind of went to be a huge dragon. Twilight, she has no control over what he's doing, which is just insane. And it's this idea that like, you can't really force somebody to change as a person. They need to make a decision to change. And so Spike, he has that same thing happen to him. He's got everything he can want. He's taken all the things from the material world that he could possibly desire. But what he really, really wants is the friendship and the affection of Rarity, right? He wants this bond, this social connection with the other person. And so what's like absolutely insane is as he's like this huge, tall dragon, going through town, basically kind of like Godzilla, and just knocking over, crushing everything in sight that's possible that they can like find, just more and more destruction after another, breaking down buildings, taking whatever it is that they want. Rarity talks to him and looks him in the eye and says, "Look, this is bogus, this is BS, you got to put me down. I'm not going to deal with this." And he has so much greed, and he has like this, he literally breaks off the water tower for the town and starts to fill the water tower with stuff, right? Because he's just greedy and taking all the stuff. And she says, "This is insane. You got to stop this. We'll never be your friend. You just cut everything if you don't cut this out." He realizes that he's got to make a decision between all these material things or the true friendship that he desires from Rarity, which is just insane. And it forces him to fundamentally shift the way he looks at what he actually values, what the most important things to him are, and how those things develop over time. And for him, he makes a decision. He says, "Look, gotta cut this out, gotta cut this crap." And he decides that it's more important for him to have this relationship, to have this connection with someone who he loves, than it is to have all this material crap anywhere. And so what he does is he takes all the stuff, throws it out, throws it away, gets rid of it. He overcomes his greed to come to a state of total tranquility and freedom from want, where he is totally content and happy with his life and the relationships and goods that are in his world, and build him up to be exactly who he is. So he shrinks back down to normal size. He comes back to be normal size, and it goes to rarity. I mean, they kiss and it's fun. Everyone's happy, and he realizes that to get what he really wanted, what he really desired, it wasn't what was natural for dragons. What's natural for dragons in the period he was going through was like this idea that he had to get more and have more goods, have more materials, have more things in his life, more things in his life. That wasn't it at all. He needed stronger relationships. And the only way to do that is through time, right? You can't buy time. You just have to put the time in, go and go and go. It's just a simple process. More and more time, energy, effort, concentrated willpower in this connection with the person he cares about. And that's what allowed him to overcome his, natural dragon puberty process of going through grief and more importantly, greed of just material goods around him, into actually self-actualizing and realizing what really mattered in his life was not a physical thing, was not a material good, but it was his ability to connect with other people and focus on his interior motivations, conditions, and what he actually cared about. This is a really powerful concept, and you see it a lot as people portray Wall Street and specifically with greedy and talking about greed is good, and it's just so crazy because you have to take a step back and look, on an individual one-on-one basis, what actually matters the most to you in your life, and then how can you get that? And as soon as you do that, you can destroy the metaphorical monsters in your life, just like a spike was a monster. You can absolutely get rid of it by coming to terms with what really needs to happen to get that one special connection that would change everything for you and for your future. Ooh, this sounds fun. Okay, so they have this event. It's basically kind of the same as Christmas, and they call it Heartswarming Eve. So in Heartswarming Eve, they have this huge play. They're doing this big play for the entire town. The entire town is here at this play, and they're super, super excited to demonstrate. And so what happens is the main six are sort of the main characters of this play, and they dress up to be the characters. So you can see you got Rarity, Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash, and they're all dressed up as really, really old ponies. This is thousands of years ago, before Celestia kind of ruled the land, before everyone was in tranquility. And the problem they were having was a very, very fundamental problem. There's earth ponies, and there's Pegasuses, and there's unicorns, right? And originally they were totally separated, and they just didn't have any friendship. They didn't have any connections. They were really messed up. And so because of that, and they play, so these play the earth ponies, and then they play the Pegasus, and they play the unicorns. As the story goes on, and they start together, and they say, look, we're going to divide up the land, and we're all going to live and be happy. And so they go, their separate ways. They go out to wherever they want to go. And, the biggest problem is, they're always arguing and fighting and discriminating and trying to figure out, who's the best and who has the most land. And they're just trying to not necessarily work together, but separate, deviate, and be their own little entities, their own social group, out actually connecting. And so what this does is it creates a hostile environment. And what happens in hostile environments start to have decay, start to have destruction, you start to have anger, jealousy. And so they have these metaphorical, but they call them Wendigos. And so there's these three Wendigos They kind of like fly in the sky, and they just circle around for like the show. And these Wendigos represent like all the anger and the hatred and the negativity between these three groups. So they go off on their own ways and they try to separate themselves, but they find that they can't really get too far apart from each other, and they're still bickering and arguing about who's the best and who's the ruler and why, earth ponies are better than Pegasus or better than unicorns or whatever, right? And so they get in these very heated, debates about which social group is superior. And because of that, they get sort of brought into a really, really big cave. And at this big cave, what happens is you've got sort of the leaders of each group, and then there are also the assistants, right? And so, the leaders of the Earth Ponies, leaders of the Pegasus, and leaders of the unicorns, and then their little like assistants. And the leaders, they are like pissed, right? And they're working with one another. They're just at each other's necks, their throats, cutting each other down. They're trying to break up the inside of this cave into divided areas so that they can have their own place to live inside this cave, which is just ridiculous. And as they argue and argue and argue and argue, what happens is these Wendigos, they circle above the cave, and they start to freeze it in. So this ice starts to form on the walls. Ice starts to form on the floor. And the whole world around them just starts to get surrounded by ice. And this ice, it works its way up to the ceiling, goes and goes and goes. And this ice is fueled by their hatred for one another, by their anger and their competition for land, their competition for superiority. They're just trying to destroy each other, which is terrible, all because they're in different social groups. They're in different, I guess, kind of like races, sort of. They have different physical features, right? And so because they're totally unable to work together, to connect, to build friendships and build relationship, this ice starts to cave in, and all of a sudden it starts to freeze the leaders. And as the leaders start to freeze, the servants are just following the leader, right? Like, they don't know what's going on. I mean, these guys, they're the real problem, the leaders. And so they literally get frozen solid in ice, okay? And these Wendigos, they're just thrown on their heads when they're feeding off the negative energy. They're feeding off the destruction and the anger that is created by these terrible arguments between the three groups. And so these servants, they're about to get iced. They're going to get engulfed in ice too. And so they kind of come to the middle of the room. They come together, and they're trying to save each other together instead of arguing like their masters were, right? Instead of going against one another and suffering the same fate that these guys faced, where they got frozen solid, they come together and they say, "Oh my gosh, this is insane. I'm so sorry. This is bogus. We shouldn't have to fight, and we shouldn't have to separate our land. This is ridiculous." So they'll come together as a group, as a team, and they form a group, and they say, "We will fall together as a team, as a group." And what do? They expunge negative energy, completely remove all negativity from themselves and their environment, and only focus on positive energy. They only think about the growth they're going to have together and the friendship they'll have together. And what's this do? Well, it completely destroys these sirens that were orbiting above, that were creating all the ice in the chamber. And so they get like up to their head filled, their neckline, like frozen solid. And then these Wendigos, they fade away because they were feeding on the negative energy. And as soon as they were a group, as they were united with friendship, that negative energy is gone. And because it's gone, they survive, they become free. And soon enough, their masters become free, and they realize that they need to come together and create a united world, which they called Equestria, and that was how Equestria was founded. And that all came from their ability to step back, ignore pointless differences over the individuals, over the groups, over the social conditions, over what they were founded on. Just trash it away, forget about it, come together, overcome negativity. Remember, you got to remove negativity, right? For these guys, they literally were almost killed because of their negativity. Whereas these guys survived and thrived and brought everyone together and succeeded at creating a global world, a global Equestria, because they understood the principles of friendship. And they realized these guys are stronger together than they will ever be apart. And so they used that principle to overcome a lot of the initial challenges and a lot of the rudimentary problems that these guys had with working with one another. And they started working with each other in every aspect of their lives and intermingled with each other, so that now, the earth ponies are really good at farming. The unicorns, not the greatest at farming. Same thing with the Pegasi. And they were able to focus now on their unique ability, right? Split this quadrant up. They do what they love. They do what they're passionate about. And they're able to leverage the work of other people to do what they're not great at. Earth ponies can't control the weather. Unicorns, very, very specialized skill set. They can do specialized tasks. And the whole society grows significantly faster into eventually what it became, in the current day, all because in the past they were able to overcome their differences and unite together to form this new world where hatred and anger and conflict were not at the center, while friendship and collaboration and an overarching social mastermind were the core and the key concepts to everything that they did. Awesome. Okay, cool. So this next one is called Family Appreciation Day, which is the coolest thing ever. And so what they do, so Applejack and then her sister, Apple Bloom, and then her brother, Big Mac, and the old one, her name's Granny Smith. The whole Apple family, right? They come together for this one special day, which is Family Appreciation Day. And they go off on this cool trip to visit their aunt. And their aunt is the family historian, and she's got the best time ever, and they always have fun. And what's interesting is it gives you an insight and a perspective into fundamental family relationships, and then how you can sort of use those to create the connections that you want with the people that you love, which is so important. So let's walk through that. So they start this journey together. And what's cool about this journey is, in the beginning, they're all family. They're happy. They're going together, and their end goal is to get to this aunt, right? And as soon as they get to the aunt, they want to figure out family history, come together as a group, celebrate their ancestry, celebrate their history, and become one with each other. So they go on this temporary journey. And what's cool is on this journey, they're not just focusing on themselves, but they're taking a step back and they're thinking about their history as a family. They're thinking about the special connections that they have. They're actually, this is a very, very powerful skill set that you can develop only once you form strong relationships, is they're able to mentally visualize the mastermind that they create when they all connect, when they all forge together. And they can see that this is the total pool of knowledge and brain power that they have together. And they have it together. Why do they have it together? They have it together because they've been living together and working together towards a common goal, right? Their common goal is apples, right? They want to collect a ton of apples and market them, right? So since they're all on the same path and they all know exactly what they want to do, they'll have this one goal to work towards. This mastermind fills in the gap. It creates the plan, and it lets them get there faster and faster and faster than anything they could individually create, right? They could individually bring to reality. That's the power of what they start with here. At ground zero, is this family mastermind, because everyone in this family is positive. Everyone in this family is oriented to create the greatest, output for the family and the greatest impact they could possibly have in the marketplace. So they know exactly what they want to get done, and they do it by focusing on this group mentality, this group mastermind, this group development and growth. And so this day, it's a very special day, because what they do is they connect with one another again. And they say, wow, I appreciate you. Wow, I really, you're amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's something that is just insane. I try to say thank you at least 100 times a day. And it's just at random things sometimes. And maybe it's at people sometimes. Or maybe it's at the world sometimes. Or maybe it's to myself. Say thank you for nice weather. Say thank you for rainy weather. I love rain. Rain's super fun. It lets you do what you love to do. I mean, it's just, I just really, really, really like rain. Say thank you for anything that comes across in your day as unique, that comes across as special. That's what they're doing. They're thanking each other for being there for each other. Because the more gratitude that you can develop, the more gratitude. It's so, so, so important. See, it's cool because saying thank you, it doesn't cost you anything. Having gratitude, it doesn't cost you anything. But these two concepts, when combined together, will have such a profound impact on your personal satisfaction and happiness and fulfillment on a day-to-day basis. More than any single thing that I think you could do besides this. Any relationship you have, if you're not thankful for that relationship, if you're not thankful for that planet or for that family, if you resent this development, if you resent this growth, all of a sudden, everything fades away. Everything just breaks. If these guys aren't connected, if they aren't mentally in sync, if they aren't totally and completely convinced that they are effective because of each other, then they're going to be gone. They're just done, all right? But that's not what happens, right? They say thank you. They spend literally an entire day doing nothing except saying thank you, except giving gratitude for the most important people in their life. You might not want to spend an entire day. Maybe you don't have a family reunion or something like that, where you go off and you connect with the family and everyone has a great time. You spend 1 minute a day just texting your mom, thank you, love you, appreciate it. Or you spend maybe 4 minutes a day going through maybe the top 10 things that happened throughout the entire day at the end of the day, saying thank you, appreciate it, that's awesome. Or you spend the first 10, 15 minutes of a day, you take a shower, you brush teeth, whatever, and then you spend literally 30 seconds saying thank you for the air I breathe, thank you for this room I'm in, thank you for this bed I slept in, thank you for this shower that I used this morning. Thank you. You don't have to think, it doesn't have to be directed at somebody, because gratitude is so ridiculously powerful that the simple act of giving thanks can fundamentally shift everything that you do and just absolutely skyrocket that satisfaction, skyrocket that happiness. I challenge you, it's ridiculously difficult to say thank you while frowning and being sad. It's impossible. You're so happy when you give gratitude and you give thanks, because happiness, happy emotions gratitude and you they cannot exist at the same time as negative emotions like anger and jealousy. You've really, really got to be trying to be super pissed off at me and also very grateful for whatever. I don't know. Maybe I made you a sandwich at Subway. I don't know. They don't exist in parallel. It's one or the other. So if you can focus exclusively on gratitude by saying thank you all the time, it's going to abolish these negative emotions. Completely get rid of them. And now your whole life is in a completely different state. That's exactly what they're doing. They're living their entire state of being in this peak state where they are so grateful and happy and excited for the world around them. And they know that they're going to have the best day of their lives. They're going to have the best family, the best growth, the best system, the best trip. Why? Because they give gratitude. Okay, cool. All right, sweet. This one's called Baby Cakes, and what happens is, so Pinky, she works at this bakery, right? And at this bakery, her boss, I guess, is Mr. and Mrs. Cake. And Mr. and Mrs. Cake, they're just like, older people, I guess, or adults, ponies, whatever. And they just, they make cake all day. And Mr. and Mrs. Cake have kids, right? So they have 2 kids, and Pinky is like super, super excited. So here's like their little, they sell all their cupcakes and their cakes and their baked goods on the bottom floor, and then they just kind of live in the attic, in the roof, whatever. Actually, I don't know. They just sort of live there. Pinky sees these 2 kids, and she is so excited, so happy for them. And she's like, oh my God, that's so cool. And she wants to babysit, the 2 kids, right? Wee. And, Mr. and Mrs. Cake, they want to go out, they want to have a party, they want to have some fun, and they're like, okay, cool. Yeah. Pretty basic, fundamental stuff. Sure, come ahead. We'd appreciate it if you would babysit. So she says, sure, just let me know when. And then they say, we need you to do, next Thursday. All right, so it goes to next Thursday. She says, is there anything that would stop you from getting this done and doing it? Now, this is a really, really good, like if you're negotiating or you're trying to get some sort of deal done or some business thing, use like this phrase, like, is there anything that would stop you from doing that? Is there anything that would prevent you from doing that? And that's exactly what Mr. and Mrs. Cake pull on Pinkie Pie. They say, all right, we'll do this next week on Thursday. Is there anything that would prevent you from babysitting on that day? And she says, no, I promise I'll do it, and it'll be the best thing ever, which is super, super, super cool. And that's like exactly what actually happened. So week goes by, Pinky's here, and it's the same Thursday, and she's like super busy, which is like ridiculous. She's doing errands everywhere, doing a whole bunch of stuff, and then she realizes, oh crap, I promised that I would do this thing. I would babysit these kids, and she's like super excited about it. So she drops everything. This is why you really want to like plan ahead. Use a calendar so that you know when stuff is gonna happen. So like you gotta like actually check your calendar. This is why it's like super helpful if you plan your day out the night before with like a daily journal. And so like the night before, you could go and you could say, well, look, I gotta do this babysitting from 5 to 9 or something like that, and like plan it so that you're not surprised. So anyway, so she gets called by him, and she says, all right, I'm on my way. Let me get there. She gets there. She takes care of it. She takes 2 kids. And these 2 kids, they're freaking, pretty cute. And so she's like ecstatic to be able to play with them. But the problem with most new kids is, they are like crying and crying and crying and crying, and these are tears, I guess, and whining and wailing everywhere. It's just a little bit of a mess. And so she basically spends like the whole night trying to just entertain them, take care of them, and stop them from, being ridiculously upset. And so that's kind of what leads to, at the beginning she just like feeds them a whole bunch of food, and they're like, oh, cool food, and then they chill out. But then there's a little bit of a problem. They throw their food on the ground, they make a mess everywhere. Pretty, basic stuff. But to overcome this challenge is where Pinky's character really, really shows, and where you can kind of learn the most from this experience. Pinky, she's focused on laughter, she's focused on happiness, she's focused on joy. And so because of that, when she sees this negative situation start to come up with these kids, she realizes that like the best way to grow from this, and the best way to really make them happy again, is to leverage that skill that she has, which is entertainment and being fun with people. She stops everything, and she starts to figure out, how can I entertain these people? You look at like some of the top entertainers in the world, top performers in the world, that are focused exclusively in making people smile through entertainment. The number one question is like, how can you get this smile on people's faces? And that's exactly what she wants to do with these kids, right? And so she starts to just do ridiculous, she like dumps, like a bag of flour, like all over her, to try to get these kids to just chill out for a second, stop freaking out, and start laughing for just one moment in, it's a pretty hectic day. And it works for a very, very short period of time. And there's a huge mess everywhere, and so they laugh at the huge mess everywhere. But then, it dries up, it cleans up, and they get upset again, and they're crying and they're whining, and she's not able to find consistent relief that works and that also doesn't get her destroyed as a person, until she finds this little pig nose, I guess, and she just puts on this pig nose and starts singing to them and dancing with them and connecting with them on a more personal level. See, what she's done is she's totally disembodied herself, and she's thought, what do these kids want? They want entertainment. She does not care if she has to sacrifice her ego to get these kids to stop crying, because they're ridiculously annoying. You don't want to hear kids cry all night. So she puts down herself by putting on this pig nose and sings pig songs for the whole night, and just starts singing to these kids and trying to entertain them. And it works, right? She entertains them by dancing and singing and looking like a total fool, but she sacrifices herself for the betterment of the group, so that these kids are going to be happy, go to bed on time, laugh, be joyful, whatever it is that they want. She is willing to put it in. She's willing to get it done for these kids because she cares so much about them, that she'll sacrifice herself, sacrifice her sanity, sacrifice her work, sacrifice her entire development, because she knows without a shadow of a doubt that they are the key to forming the world that she wants. The world that she wants is just this nice, peaceful, tranquil world where the kids are out there having fun, and she's able to relax and just enjoy their presence as they kind of chill out and sleep and don't have a big deal whatsoever. And that's really exactly where she gets. And the way that she gets these guys to bed, and the way that she gets them to listen to her and follow her, by going through these crazy dances, these crazy little routines as a person. Because as soon as she does that, the kids realize that, first of all, she's trying super hard to get their attention and to get it, done and make it happen. And if you put in a massive amount of effort, other people will notice and other people will care. All right? You spend 4,000 or give 100% all in for 2 hours trying to put on some kind of performance in front of a huge audience. They're going to give you something from it if you've given it your all. And that's exactly what Pinky's doing. That's exactly what happens here. But kind of more important than effort, more important than, all in all the time, which is super important in the basic, is this is Pinky's area of expertise. She is built for smiles. She's built for happiness. Everything she does, all the parties she throws, all of the social events, it's all based around happiness. And it's not, it likes to also bake because she really likes to bake. But more importantly, it's she wants to make people happy. And so because of that, these kids, they realize that she's giving all she has in the best way that she can possibly give it to them. Stand back, relax, chill out. They accept her efforts. And at the end of the night, instead of being whining and jumping up and down and throwing stuff everywhere, making a huge mess, they listen to what she says. They respect her as an authority, as a responsible figure that can control themselves. And they go nicely to sleep. And just like that, the cakes come home, and they think it was the easiest night ever. And Pinky never wants to babysit again because it was just so much work for her.